Hey YouTube, JGreen302. I think I'm going to call this one Solar 2.0, an analysis. So, we've got 4 125 amp Walmart marine batteries. We've got a 1000 watt pure sine inverter. We've got 4 15 watt solar panels, 200 watt solar panels, and 2 charge regulators, and a grid tie inverter. The one that I got was junk. In the process of trying to figure out what was wrong with it, I dropped it. Broke the negative connection on the back. Did a lot of cussing, threw it in the trash. I've got another one on order. I've got my numbers. I have processed Ohm's law. I have gone through a lot of technical analysis. Let me give you guys some things to think about when contemplating this. The setup that I have put together is in excess of $1,000. $230 per 100 watt panel, $230 in the original 60 watt kit, between the batteries, the inverters, and the gauges and the wires and the connectors and the watt meters and everything else, probably well in excess of $1,000. I would probably put it around $1,400. So, here's what I think. I think that investing in the 4 batteries, wiring them in series, and giving yourself 500 amp hours, 500 hours of 1 amp electric with a pure sine wave inverter is money well spent. I think that the return and the value on that is exceptional. It does everything that I set out to originally do, and I was very pleased. I think it's an excellent disaster preparedness option. I think it is exceptional in the sense that it can provide basic simple lighting and basic small services indefinitely when paired with a solar panel or 2. It's quiet. It does not rely on refueling. It is not dependent upon you having stored a lot of gas. It's not like a generator where you're going to be required to do a lot of maintenance. Wasps can't get into it and mess the device up, or stale gas, both of which I've had cases of. So I'm really pleased with that part. I don't think I have any problems, and I wholeheartedly support it. On the solar panel side, I think the cost is high. I have 260 watts of solar sitting out there. On a fairly decent day, I can hit between 8 and 9 amps and roughly 130 watts of power. So for $700, I'm able to produce, for the daylight periods when I have decent sunlight, a light bulb. I don't think that that's a very good return on the investment. The panels are, I would say that a 100 watt panel or 200 watt panels, and I would stop. And I would have the panels merely to indefinitely keep your batteries in shape. I wouldn't go any further because the cost return is not there. Even with a grid tie inverter, if all I'm putting in is, 5 or 6 hours of 100 watts per hour back into the house, yes, I will get at least that free power being reapplied where it can start to cut costs down. But let me give you an example. I've got an Alienware PC. Last night, I reconfigured my monitors in my PC and put a kilowatt meter between the wall and those devices. And this morning it was 2,200 watts between last night and this morning. So 100 watts for a couple hours is not going to really offset anything. Why spend thousands and thousands of dollars to try to offset these? It makes no sense. So if you want to do something on a budget, a couple of batteries and an inverter, I strongly recommend. On a budget, a single 100-watt panel and a charge controller just to keep those batteries in check, that's a good return on your investment. If you think that you're going to lower your electric bill by getting your grid tie inverter with a small setup, you're kidding yourself. It ain't going to happen. You're going to have to invest heavily in solar in order to ever get a return out of it. Maybe down the road I can tell you another version of the story, because we're putting a 28-point-something kilowatt system out at the farm. So we have got between 100 and 120 panels of 230-watt panels going up on the roof. They're almost complete. And after a month or two, I could probably give you some figures and some numbers. But when you have a $130,000 system, I am expecting it to produce a substantial amount of electricity, and it's probably going to work out there. And with government subsidies and FDA subsidies and everything else that help offset the cost, financially it worked out. But for the home prepper, get yourself a couple of batteries, some LED bulbs. Understand how it is so much cheaper to cut down your expectations, to run 5-watt lights, to run small power consuming devices. Think of it like being an RV camper. How would you set up an RV camper and it be practical? So you get your camper, your drivable RV camper, you put a couple of solar panels up on the top of your RV. You put a couple of batteries in the RV, and you set up a solar 12-volt DC system for your camper so that you can go park at Yosemite Park for a couple of days. How would you live in that circumstance? How would you cook? How would you do your lighting? If you go through that process and then simply apply it to a couple of batteries at your house, you get the idea. It's the same cost analysis. It's the same implementation idea. It's the same everything. This is the scale. This is where you put your mind. This is where you think it through. This is where you do your cost analysis, and this is how you go about your approach, because it is exactly what you're looking for. If it works in an RV, it's going to work for you in your house. It's just going to be on a smaller scale. You don't do big scale in your RV when you're doing that, so it works. I'll continue with the grid tie because I don't want to cycle those batteries a lot. I'm kind of pleased with the results that I've gotten. There was mistakes along the way. I invested a little bit more in order to get all the gauges and the measurements, but I'm passing this all along. I ate a lot of money to present this information to you guys. I'll pay the price, and hopefully everybody else learns these lessons. I just don't see, unless you're willing to put 12 to 20 200 watt plus panels at 24 volts up on your house, you're really not going to ever be able to recoup what's going on with the investment. You're just not going to be able, and the moment you go to that scale, you're not playing with 8 amps of 12 volt electric like a car where you can just run some wires and do it. You're talking about certified electricians. So there comes a point where you have to step across the big gap, and it goes from small scale to it's serious. And if you're not willing to go to serious, it's 4 batteries and an inverter. That's what it boils down to. And you have to know when the stop point is. I have concluded that I've reached my stop point. There's no point in getting more panels, a wind generator, things like that. It's the amount of return that I would get is so little as opposed to how much money that would be spent out. I can find a lot better ways to spend that money. But I can't beat the 4 batteries. The cost for the batteries and storing that power and what it delivers to me with that pure sine wave, that is about the most bang for the buck I could ever ask for. The only thing is that if it's out for 2 or 3 weeks, that those batteries aren't going to last forever. There has to be some way to trickle charge. And I guess that's really what this all boils down to, is even with my 230 watts of solar, the best that I can hope for is between 7 and 8 amps for 5 hours if I'm lucky, and this is the winter, so this is the worst time. About 5 hours at 8 amps. If you grab any battery charger, probably it says 2 or 6 amps, and it's a battery charger. How long does a battery charger take to charge a battery? And in my case, 4, if you start putting a drain on it every day. Part of my problems with providing videos on the process is that I've had very little sunlight. I've had a lot. It's raining today. It was raining yesterday. The day before, I actually had a little sunlight. But there's been very limited sunlight, and that is a Achilles heel of the good old solar. I've had a few windy days, but for the most part, no wind. So if bad times ever came, it would be a patience and power management game that would have to be played with those batteries in order to provide the lighting and some of the basic little necessities. And there would be times that you would simply be out and in the dark, and then that's when you break out the candles. I don't know if this helps. I have at least reached my point where I'm satisfied with the analysis. I am satisfied that I know the limitations of the system. I know where my money was best spent. I know that it's time to stop with the panels. I know that I have a system that will do everything that I'm hoping it will do. It's still portable, but it's reached a point of diminishing returns. I just can't see where throwing another $500 into it is going to get me anything. If you look at your electric bill and the price per kilowatt that you're paying, there's no touching it. I mean, it's like paying $10 a kilowatt the way I'm doing it, as opposed to the way I'm getting it from the electric company. It makes no sense. I can't do anything with it. So there you go. I'll tell you about the big system later. I just wanted to take a few minutes while I was wrapping up and I'd looked at my numbers. Thought I'd post it, give you the analysis, let you guys hear it. I spent a lot of money to give you this information, sharing it as best I can, but it's a good system, as long as you don't go too far with it. And mind you, I did not invest in all these bypass panels and disconnects and all that. I sat down with home wiring and treated it like a car, and I basically know. Now in the summer, it's probably going to perform a lot better. But then again, all I'm doing is throwing electric into the house because I don't want to cycle those batteries until I need them. So there you go. An analysis on the solar hole project that I've just done. I hope it's been informative. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. Have a great one.